Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Henry Stewart Events, welcome to our DAM Industry Week virtual conference. Today in day one, we'll be covering media and entertainment and have a packed agenda for you. So without further ado, please welcome our chair, Mr. Graham Allen. Graham, over to you.
Well, thanks very much. And let me echo that welcome. Welcome to DAM Industry Week 2023, our annual virtual celebration of all things digital asset management. And this year, media and entertainment have the good fortune to be the opening act, launching Industry Week. And we're thrilled all of you have joined us for this, and from so many different parts of the world too. Because DAM has such a long history in the media business, we sometimes think there might not be very much more new to explore, but that ends up not really being true at all. The world around us, how content is made and managed, published, distributed and consumed, marketed, and maybe nowadays mined in new ways for new monetization, that all keeps moving and changing faster and faster. And new dimensions of our business need ever more sophisticated DAM capabilities to meet their needs. Nothing to be bored about in DAM for M&E. So we've curated a rather tasty cadre of storytellers here today to share their DAM journeys, innovations, aspirations, tips and tricks, showcasing just how much the content industry is still out in front, driving DAM in new directions. Now, we are all virtual here today, but Henry Stewart's in-person events are back in London in June and in New York in September. And we hope many of you will be able to join us there. And even though we're missing that live experience here today, we do have some things going on throughout the day to help fill some of that missing void. You can click on the exhibition tab anytime to visit our sponsors, learn about their products and services, or head to the lounge tab for real-time networking with your colleagues. During the sessions, you can chat with your fellow delegates and of course submit questions to the current speaker or panel using the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. Please ask questions. Make the most of the awesome brain trust we've assembled for you here today. By the way, the Q&A and chat boxes are separate. So if you want to raise a question with the speakers, please click on the Q&A tab. One last tip, if you find yourself needing any assistance or support from the Henry Stewart team, please use the chat bot, which is that funky little bubble in the bottom right of your screen. We promise it's more than a bot, and you'll get connected to some very helpful real people there. That's our housekeeping for the day. Now on with the show. And to start that show, we have a fantastic story from the Philadelphia Orchestra, where DAM is at the center of a collaborative creative process. Roberta Gorin-Paracka and Travis Wurges are here to share it all with us. So Roberta and Travis, over to you.
Thank you, Graham. Travis and I are excited to share a little bit about the Philadelphia Orchestra's digital asset management system and video production workflows. Just going to share my screen. All right, I'm going to kick this off with some background on our DAM initiative, which started a little over 4 years ago, and our recording and production activities, which have been going on considerably longer. For over a century, recording and broadcasting have been vital parts of our legacy. We made our first acoustic recording in 1917, led by our third music director and conductor, Leopold Stokowski. In 1925, we were the first symphony orchestra to make use of the new electrical method of recording. We were the first orchestra to appear on national television in 1948, and in 1997, we made history once again as the first major orchestra to give a live cybercast of a concert on the internet. Before the pandemic, a typical season would entail audio recordings of most of our performances for either radio partnerships, commercial release, or internal archival and educational purposes. Video was a more infrequent activity, a few captures per season of special events, international touring activity, material for promotional purposes, and they were generally 1 or 2 camera shoots. So planning for our early digital asset management initiative was really centered around our largest holdings, audio and video, and for our user base to consist of marketing, communications, and some production staff. Our DAM was going to be a repository for our archival, audiovisual, and marketing assets, and a centralized hub for our marketing team's works in progress. Fast forward to March 12th, 2020. With the announcement of the impending lockdown, our staff quickly shifted that evening's in-person program to a live stream, performed to an empty concert hall. Live in-person performances were halted for the foreseeable future, and we transitioned the remainder of our season to what we called the virtual Philadelphia Orchestra. Archival performance videos, supplemented with new content filmed by orchestra musicians from home, Zoom conversations with guest artists and conductors, and even an at-home gala enabled us to continue to engage with audiences. And as those first few weeks of quarantine turned into months, discussions on how to safely reconvene musicians and return to the stage led to the development of two new digital-first ventures, the digital stage and Our City, Your Orchestra. We launched the digital stage in late summer 2020 and released over 30 new unique programs between September and June 2021. With Our City, Your Orchestra, we created a short-form, community-focused series that combines storytelling and musical collaboration, highlighting Philadelphia area businesses and organizations that align with our mission, vision, and values. While the digital stage is the closest approximation to a live orchestra experience, Our City, Your Orchestra brings an ensemble group of musicians out of the concert hall for a cultural exploration of Philadelphia. Travis will speak more about the production process, but these digital programs offered new perspectives and vantage points and allowed audiences close access to musicians from their own homes. They also increased our reach. Programming was streamed on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, through a special partnership with the staff at the Palmer Research Center. Aside from socially distanced shoot days, all work was being done remotely. And concurrent with these new ways of working, we were also just diving into the implementation of our first digital asset management system, known internally as DAISY. We decided early on to only ingest final approved video assets into our system. Our existing infrastructure was not meant to handle production-level video assets, and the vast increase in production meant that we were generating several terabytes worth of video and audio per shoot and releasing between 3 and 5 programs per month, much more than we'd ever done before. Prior to Travis coming on board, our trusted external production partners managed our captures. Not ideal in the long run, but an acceptable interim solution as we dealt with the new normal. My initial activity was focused on the migration and ingestion of previously siloed assets, user onboarding and training, and utilizing our system for the simplification of final asset distribution. Our DAM vendor had developed 2 APIs to facilitate asset ingestion and deployment. The first pulls from our internal performance management system into our DAMs to create event assets. Event assets are then populated with metadata fed from that system, fields like composer and repertoire, conductor, guest artist, and location. On ingestion, creative assets are manually related back to these event records, enabling users to enter a date in search to bring up performance assets. The second, which was crucial for us in our digital media only season, is an approval workflow step that pushes video assets from DAISY onto the platform used on our website for streaming and on-demand video access. Our marketing team can then access the video on that platform and build out the proper page on that site for its public premiere. Both APIs serve to save time, reduce redundancy, and increase findability and consistency. And the transmission of performance metadata directly from a single entry point ensures the standardization of information across systems, across assets, and across the organization. This example slide shows an event asset with all the relevant metadata pulled in from our performance management system. The Overview tab shown on the left displays the aforementioned event details, composer, repertoire, event date and time, and conductor and guest artists. Displayed on the right is the Events Media tab, users are shown all assets associated with a particular event, as well as a quick indication of their usage rights and permissions, which are color-coded for increased visibility. The video asset page displays all descriptive metadata, and additional modules on the page show users the relationships between that asset and others within the system, such as its parent event, what audio is used, any renditions or clips that have been created, caption files if available, and production personnel. Along with the processes and systems Travis will describe, DAISY is a critical component of our creative workflows and the bridge between production and distribution. Through expanding our internal video production capabilities and implementing our DAMs, we've been able to highlight the importance of standardizing operating procedures across the organization. Early on, I developed a standardized naming convention for all new creative assets that's also been retroactively applied to legacy assets. Legacy names are preserved within asset metadata as an indexed cross-reference. I've worked closely with our production teams to create asset delivery guidelines, and our DAM governance committee adopted the organization's first digital preservation policy in 2021, which informs our approach to asset stewardship and ensures that our infrastructure can keep pace with production. In the years that have followed, we've been able to remedy some of our biggest pain points and make sure we can always answer the question of what is this, where is this, and can we actually use this? We're now in the third season of both Digital Stage and Our City, Your Orchestra, and continue to share the transformative power of the performing arts with an audience well beyond our limits. And with that, I'll pass it over to Travis for a deeper dive into video production.
Thanks, Roberta. Hello, everyone. As Roberta mentioned, the Philadelphia Orchestra has been involved in forms of media pretty much since the beginning. I'm sure we would have been an early adopter of stone tablets had we existed back then. That's kind of how forward-thinking the organization has been. Now, like I said, and as Roberta said, the organization has been creating video for a long time, though it was not on a regular basis. Prior to 2021, videos were primarily created by external partners and overseen by staff. But in July 2021, I was given the opportunity to join the team to kind of develop in-house production. And then about a year later, we added an assistant video producer. So we essentially went from 0 to 1,000 in about 2 years. And we continue to move forward quickly because our leadership firmly believes in the power of video and how we can communicate our story. And one of the things that we really strive for with video is humanizing the orchestra, the organization, and our musicians, so they're not just people you see from afar. We still do work with external partners on occasion. Here's a photo from one of the shoots that we've done. One of the cool things I'd say we do a number of shoots in this range, in this level, but my screen will not, oh, there it is. I'm back. Can you tell I work in technology every day? So one of the benefits of bringing things in-house is we can create a lot more. It's more cost-effective. We found having a team embedded in the organization rather than an agency that's kind of focused on many clients. We get the focus just on the organization. Now, as Roberta mentioned, when the pandemic hit, our pause was shorter than many of our peers. Our music director, leadership, and staff basically pivoted the organization from a live performance organization to a digital content creator, which is pretty big to turn 100. I think we were 122 years old at that point. It's a pretty drastic transition. But as Roberta mentioned, we created the digital stage and it reached all 7 continents, which is pretty sweet. So having almost 125 years worth of assets is daunting, but the DAM allows video production to quickly see what music and photos are available for potential use. In videos, we only use music that was recorded by the orchestra for a number of reasons. And even then, there's licensing issues with things not in the public domain. So thankfully, the orchestra has been capturing concerts in a high quality for so long because we have a lot of content to work with, but not everything exists recorded. So we have to get creative sometimes. And what's cool about the DAM and working with Daisy, this is the first time I've been in an environment this organized and this rock solid. Thank you, Roberta. It's important that we can see the noted restrictions of what we can use, what we can't use, what we might be able to use with further conversation. And I'll talk about this more a little later, but the difference between raw and unedited recordings and intermediate approvals and masters, thankfully we can filter using the DAM and the filter functions to limit what we try and use. And it's super relevant for photos because unapproved photos are a little bit harder to tell the difference between than audio. Audio is a little bit more obvious on some levels. And, part of our pivot has been from the consumer level, cloud storage services that aren't super effective when you're trying to download videos and track things down. That's what we found for sure. And as Roberta mentioned, naming conventions, consistent naming, consistent file structure. One of the things that I harp on the most when we're not in the DAM with my colleagues is file structure. And then we're all big believers in consistency. But we've not successfully solved all of our DAM problems. There's still physical, analog, and digital assets and recordings too, that are in queue to be transferred. And in addition to that, we recently joined forces with another organization that basically that owned the venue, that our primary venue. So now we have the opportunity to join forces with our digital assets as well. And that'll be, that's something Roberta's planning and experiencing. And, there's video production on that side. So we're already coordinating in those ways. So as Roberta mentioned, as we talked about, suddenly overnight, video became a huge asset generation engine. And pre-2020, according to the math I was able to figure out, the organization created about 25 videos a year. Most were short form that were less than 5 minutes. There were occasional concert captures, but few and far between. But since 2020, we've created about 35 hour-and-a-half large orchestra performances and upwards of 90 medium and short form videos. So videos under 25, 30 minutes, most of them under 5 minutes. And we've generated about 220 terabytes of data, video data in the last 3 years alone. That's a lot. And we're still trying to figure out the best way to sort it. But not all of that is in the DAM, or would it be appropriate to put there? So we have kind of developed some strategy around what gets shown, what gets put in the DAM, and what doesn't. So when we're creating projects, we have the original camera files, and then those are transcoded to a file that the computer likes better for editing. And then There's audio multi-track files from the different audio recording methods. Then once you have all that done, you create these final audio mixes. In the process, there's versions of the video that gets reviewed and changed, and hopefully not many rounds of reviews, because that means we did a good job. And there aren't a whole lot of changes throughout the process. Then final masters. And throughout the process, there's Adobe After Effects, Premiere, there's Pro Tools files, there's color correction renders from Resolve, then renders out of After Effects, other images, graphics, captions, transcripts, and miscellaneous documents. So those are all of the components, the elements that are part of the video production process. Pretty much all of our projects have those components. But what we've decided in the green is to basically store final masters and captures on the DAM. And we, explored a couple different things, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to keep After Effects renders when they can be recreated, or they're just one element of a project, because it would take up a lot of space. Video is expensive, time consuming, and takes up a lot of space. So we've differentiated between production files versus master and archives. And what we've done is created a local file server system that is where they're directly connected to our editing systems via fiber. And we do all of our work there essentially locally. And we find that that's the best way to do it for us. And I had my slides backwards. So the process we do for production to get to those assets that I listed here before, we capture, we transfer the files to the local file server, we edit, we upload versions for review, we keep doing that process, final approval, we close caption everything. To us, that is an important part of the process for accessibility. We're catching up on some old projects, some of the more highly viewed projects, but we are making progress there. And then we upload the master files to the DAM. The metadata is added, and then through the API, like Roberta mentioned, we push to the website, video host, and then the social media team takes things from there. So I want to go a little further and talk about the digital stage. The digital stage, right now, when we capture them, we use about 25 cameras. And you can see here in this photo, there are a lot of cameras. As a video geek, it's pretty cool to see the equipment all together like this. We started with 11 cameras, and like I said, now we average about 25, and we engage an external production partner for this. It's what they do every day. They're incredible at it, great to work with, and it doesn't make sense for us to bring something of this style in-house purely because of the amount of time it takes to shoot and edit. We wouldn't be able to do anything else. Now, when we continued doing the digital stage when audiences came back. And that became challenging because audiences and cameras like to be in the same spot because they're great angles. So what we did is we kind of rebuilt the camera plot from scratch so that cameras wouldn't be in the way of the audience, but the virtual audience at home wouldn't notice that we made drastic changes because of an audience in-house. And we were thankfully successful there, working with marketing and Ticket Philadelphia to get all of that situated. And the digital stage captures, they all generate around 2 terabytes of footage. Then the OCYO, Our City, Your Orchestra, where we highlight local organizations and causes that align with our mission, vision, and values. We do those monthly for part of the year. This is from a shoot we recently did. We took 3 musicians into a horse arena. We used 6 cameras, and this was all done in-house. This production was all managed, coordinated. We have some freelance camera operators, but this is an in-house production. And then on the left is another picture I put in there because it's another one. We shot interviews in the horse stables. And on the right is kind of a standard white psych production that we'll do several videos every once in a while, where we can shoot and not have to worry about the background and have some nondescript places like that. So the future of video at the orchestra is still being, it's an evolving vision, and it's exciting to be part of where we are right now. And as we continue to do more, we will continue to overload the dam and need more metadata. So Roberta, I think I have rambled enough. Graham, if you will save us all. I think you wanted to ask some questions.
Oh, no need to save. I think it's all fascinating stuff. I think the folks out there that do production might still be gasping at that camera count and the resulting footage count and data volume count. That's pretty staggering. Maybe there's a question in there is how, when you started having real audiences back, I mean, it really changes the situation for shooting. What did that mean? It's no longer as neatly controlled an environment as like a typical content production would be accustomed to.
Well, Verizon Hall, our primary performance hall, seats about 2,500, I believe. So, and it's pretty large. So when you have a studio of that size, quiet, there's no coughing, when the audience wasn't there, it was essentially a studio with incredible orchestra on stage. Well, now you add in an audience. So what we did is we went to recording 2 concerts back to back, 2 nights, to really help us make sure we get the best product. And part of that is, when we were doing all those cameras, there's a lot of headsets where there's a score reader reading through the music and helping the cameras know what's coming up. And so you have that aspect of it, and you have these camera operators that are in throughout the hall that can be seen. They're dressed in black, cameras still stick out. So the challenge was really to blend in as much as possible, and but still being in key areas that are seen. One of the things we went back and forth on that was a challenge was having a gimbal on stage, one of those handheld cameras. It's like a steady cam, makes it look like it's floating. There's tension because you don't want to be a distraction, but you want to balance the production value. So that is something that we tried, and we ended up winding down because, even in production, we just felt like it was a bridge too far for to be a distraction. So that's, we pulled cameras back, we moved some things. We end up killing about 45 seats in the hall for every video capture, which that just shows how important video is to the organization.
That's an awesome story. You've also both, I think, spoken about the speed of pivot of the organization, which is very impressive. And there's a technology side to that, but there's a people side to that too. And Roberta, you spoke about sort of the journey of progress for the organization. How did you approach coaching your users sort of on the value DAM has over those easier to use, simpler cloud storage and cloud sharing tools that they were maybe already accustomed to?
Yeah, so For change management, I was fortunate because our DAM initiative was really hyped up prior to my coming on board, and everybody was looking forward to implementing a system that would act as that centralized repository. So I maybe had it a little easier than some other organizations might. But I took the time to talk to users and talk to the staff who would be starting to utilize the system. I go through really extensive trainings and find out, if there's a pain point with something that is happening with the system, if a user is choosing to go with, a commercially available file sharing system. I try to find out why that's happening. What is the appeal over our proprietary system, and how can we work to remedy that? Because so much of it comes down to user experience. And if something is, drag and drop, send it off to a recipient, and doesn't involve as many steps as, add metadata, relate this back to an event, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible and develop workflows that are attuned to what users are looking for and really get to the heart of user experience. I've done surveys with users to see, what they're looking for, how they're searching, what kinds of assets might be coming up when they're looking for something completely different, really to just refine how the system is responding to the user demands and how we can make it better.
That's awesome. What sorts of things do you find as you're asking people what they're searching for and how they're searching? That's an often relatively unexplored space in DAM, is sort of plugging into how users are searching. What insights were you able to unearth? So
sometimes a user will say that they were looking for photos of a particular artist and nothing was coming up. So I would go through all the potential roadblocks that would prevent them from seeing a result if there is something going on with their particular user accounts or permissions. And then just making sure that they know all the different ways you can search. We have, obviously, as I mentioned, our event search, but then we also have a lot of assets that aren't necessarily tied to events. So we have, I built out a hierarchical structure that's available for users for browsing through seasons, through different subject headings. So, if somebody's encountering difficulties finding something one way, I'll offer alternatives. I'll ask them, how are you looking for this? What search terms did you use? And that also helps me because I'm basically inputting all of our descriptive metadata. And if somebody's looking for a specific term that I might not necessarily have applied to an image or a piece of audio, that's extremely helpful for me to then start to implement into my own workflows.
How much do you find sort of your role is just making sure the metadata is clean, the cataloging, versus how much do you find you're evolving the information architecture, or changing the structure, evolving it to sort of still be tuned into those needs?
So with the metadata and cleanup, there's some, especially for some of our more siloed assets, there wasn't really much metadata to begin with. So I just go through and make sure that all the relevant pieces of information are captured off the bat. So, and if it's a piece of audio, identifying what was performed in that particular concert. If there was a particular date and there's an error in our performance management system, rectifying that and just doing some cleanup. Fortunately, we really have not encountered very many of those cleanup required situations. But with our system, because it's our first digital asset management system, I was really able to take the time to envision a structure that worked with our existing assets and build out our metadata profiles to align with what the expectation was from users.
Have you been able to deploy any sorts of automation for metadata capture? How much is sort of manually entered versus how much are you able to capture from the process or in an automated way?
So what we have in our performance management system is what's automated, so that with a click of a button, we can copy the metadata from the event record onto any video or audio capture. So there's not a lot of entry to do there. But with any kind of descriptive metadata, you know, audience smiling, audience laughing, anything like that, that would help the marketing team when they're looking for images for a brochure, for our development team, if they're trying to write grants or proposals, things like that are mostly what the focus is on.
That makes sense. You know, a question that's come in a couple of different forums from the audience, and you understand you may not be able to name the exact vendor or vendors that you use, but how much have you found that the commercial technologies do what you need versus how much have you ended up customizing or adapting them to meet your needs?
I've done a fair amount of customization. Our DAM is very flexible, and I'm able to kind of go into the back end and create new modules and customize things in that way as needs come up. What the screen or the slide that I had showed with the video asset with the audio clips or audio use and renditions, those modules were all built out by me when I saw that there was a need for it. There was a lot of preparation that we'd done in advance to anticipate those types of widgets and modules on a particular asset type. But as users are, you know, getting deeper into utilizing the system, I kind of always see things that could be more helpful, and I'm able to go into the system and build them out.
Awesome. Maybe time for just one final question. Travis, you mentioned having sort of multiple groups placing expectations on you for your video. How do you balance demands, sort of video demands for these, you know, multiple masters, multiple departments?
It's an interesting question that we are still answering. One of the things I like to say is, you know, the organization has a video department, so therefore every department has a video department. And what we try and do is balance the competing needs, and we do that by we have an intake form. Finally, what would happen is emails would come in, and we would, quite frankly, I would lose requests. So that's why we have a forum now. And it comes down to the benefit of not just accepting, hey, in person, we want to do this project. You've really got to look at, we have limited resources, financial and time. And it's an evolving process, like I said, but what we do is look what serves the organization, Philadelphia Orchestra, Kimmel Center, Inc., holistically, and then what are priorities for projects that have a larger, I don't want to say influence, but have a larger purpose. And sometimes, though, some fun projects are important. We've done a couple things. You know, we did a video called Trombone Champ. There's a video game out there where you click a mouse and you play a trombone. Well, we had our trombone section play that, and it was a video that we created that turned out really cool. And it was one of those things that it was worth doing because, you know, like I said, part of what we try to do is humanize the orchestra and the organization, as opposed to just being here, let's come in, sit, and watch these people on stage. You know, we're really all people. So projects that we can do to humanize that. And I think that works across not just arts organizations, but every organization.
Actually, I think that's kind of a neat philosophy, that you have a value system in which you evaluate priority. That it's because I imagine many of our audience is wrestling with more to do than they have time to do it. And I guess actually, speaking of time, we're out of time in this session. I know we could probably keep going longer if we had time, but we don't. So Roberta and Travis, what an awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next today, we'll hear from Emily Wittenberg of the American Film Institute and Garrett Sayre from Orange Logic. And by the way, as the day progresses, you will need to click explicitly into each session as it begins, and you can start heading over to that next session right now, and we'll see you there shortly.